the meeting please come to order. I'd like an approval. Someone give a motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2016, and the minutes of the special meeting, which was on March 8th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we take item number 8 out of order and proceed with item number 8, which is the motion to approve municipal service for 1969, 1995, 2019 Main Street, Stratford, Connecticut, Christchurch property, the development of a 44-unit apartment complex as included within the transit-oriented district.
I will second, Madam Chairman.
Okay. The motion is made and seconded to take number 8, approval of municipal services for essentially what is the Christchurch property. Out of order. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passed. Okay.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to move to approve the municipal sewer service for 1969, 1995, 2019 Main Street, Stratford, Connecticut, Christchurch property, the development of a 44-unit apartment complex as included within the transit-oriented district, TOD.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the municipal sewer service for 1969, 1995, and 2019 Main Street, Stratford, which is the Christchurch property, for the development of 44-unit apartment. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairman?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman, possibly the representative for the Christchurch can tell us approximately how much revenue will be generated to the Water Authority for the development of this property?
Yes, if I may, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chase. The fee to be paid to the town for this hookup is approximately $180,000, 44 units times slightly in excess of $4,000 per unit. I've handed each of you a copy of the approval letter that we received from the Zoning Commission. Final plans were approved last week. I have given drainage studies, flow reports, and sanitary sewer capacity reports to John Casey. He has studied them and has gone over them with me, and I believe, without speaking for John, that he is prepared to recommend that the sewer system has capacity for this relatively minor addition to the sewer system. And I would respectfully request on behalf of the 200 members of the Congregation of Christ Church that this application be approved. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, can we hear from Mr. Casey?
You have a question?
This is just up the street from the Forest City Apartments on Stratford Avenue, and when that project came before this board, we had requested the developer to do a little sewer study to see if there was capacity in the line on Stratford Avenue as well as the line on Main Street that it would eventually lead to. And that study is what Mr. Knott was talking about, and that concluded that there was sufficient capacity in the Main Street sewer, and this would be tying into the same sewer. So there is sufficient capacity in the Main Street sewer, which pipe was upgraded in the late 1980s.
Okay. Does anybody have a question? Tina?
So I have two questions. One is the revenue that's generated, will this be going into the general fund or will this be going directly to the WPCA?
Oh, and the revenue, that figure I gave you of $180,000 is a lump sum payment up front. In addition to that, the Water Pollution Control Authority, not the Town of Stratford General Fund, will receive whatever the sewer fee is on an annual basis, which right now is like $500 or $600 per residential unit. I forget what it is now, $475 or $5. So
$450.
$450. Okay. So it'll be $450 times 44 going to the WPCA for the sewer service fee. $180,000 one-time fee, also going to the WPCA for the hookup fees.
Connection.
Okay.
Yes.
And my second question following up was, I was in the meetings early on at the church. When I heard this mentioned for one of the first times, I happened to be at your church that day. And following up, rainwater, sewers, that was all part of the study Mr. Casey did with regards, like I know we're watching our groundwater now with McTee and our Bond and McTee are going to be looking at that. Was that all part of that study? Because that is a low-lying area. It's near a flood zone.
What you're talking about is a regulation in town that prohibits any new construction activity from having runoff into the municipal stormwater drainage system, so that every new project, including this one, has to create a water retention system that will keep all of the storm water on site until it has a chance to filter down slowly enough to be able to emanate into the system. The drainage report, which was provided to Mr. Casey as part of the zoning commission application, dealt with all of the numbers relating to that. And there is no off-site stormwater runnage as a result of this project.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, if we're ready for a vote.
I'm sorry, Chair. Excuse me. How does this affect the water? Like, I see a lot of new construction. Our water treatment plant can handle the capacity of all of these new units. This is 44, and then there's some other people putting up some right by Wendy's. I think is about 10 or so. Are we overloading that, or is that giving it do it work harder because of so many different units or different buildings going up these days?
Well, there's currently excess capacity in the ability for the treatment plant to treat the average daily flow. We do have capacity issues at the treatment plant when there is severe rains, and as you know, we're just hoping to start our study to look at the inflow and infiltration effects on the sewer system and the capacity of the sewer system and at the treatment plant. So that part of the town's planning is going to be handled, as part of that study. So there's capacity normally, and then there's going to be a shortage of capacity during those rain events, which we will hope to mitigate once we study it and come up with a mitigation plan for keeping that clean water out of the system.
Thank you,
Because
John.
I come to some of the meetings that we've been having outside of here, and we spoke about just like King Street or whatever the street was where the condos there, we had to change the sewer system and flooding coming off the bridge and so forth. So what is that doing to our town in general? Because you got to remember, I remember since I've been here 18 years, just a lot of homes, like just people in regular homes, single family, double, triple, whatever, families, just homes, not condominiums where there's several people, like hundreds of people, or instead of where there's, like in my home, 4 people, 2 sons, wife, myself. Now you take a condo setup where you have the same thing but times 10 or times 20 or times 44 at this point. So, what are we doing in terms of our town in general? Would a water treatment plant that we have to be expanded down the line by approving all of these condos? Because condo building in the past 7 or 8 years has been really outrageous. They just been popping them up. So how's that going to affect us going down the line? What we need to
Well, again, that's why we're going to be doing a capacity study so that we can evaluate development in general in town.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to do, but I think it's kind of late because there's been a lot of construction. No, hey, what I'm saying now.
I hear what you're saying.
Because, we keep approving all of these things and everybody's thinking about making money, but ain't nobody thinking about how this particular small water treatment plant is going to handle all of these tax rolls that we want to put on the roll so we can make money. But if that breaks, what happens? You're going to have all that mess in your house?
The treatment plant itself was recently upgraded.
I know
and that recent upgrade included planning on future flows. So
to the great extent that it's been getting lately, and also, like I said, it's all still new construction. This place is only but so big.
But Wally, we're only talking about this one particular project.
Yeah, I understand, but it also affects the WPCA operating
I
system.
fully understand and agree
And
with
how
you.
would this affect that also? It's all tied into the same question.
I think John explained that earlier. They did a study.
maybe I wasn't clear. I'm just trying to say that the study of the plant, the size of the plant is sufficient to handle additional flows. We have, a history of becoming overloaded during rain events. So we're doing a study to look at two things. One is the I&I, and the other is the capacity. And that is for a long-range planning. So
How soon will that study be done?
in a year's time. And we hope to start tonight. So that's another item on the agenda.
That's great.
Beth?
Mr. Casey, if you could please discuss the inconvenience to the neighborhood that this, or just tell me about the logistics of building this for this project. Will new sewer pipes need to be put in on Main Street, or is this limited to simply the property? Can you just discuss that for me so I could tell my
Yeah, the impact
constituents
from the infrastructure would be bringing a pipe from the property out to the middle of the road where the sewer is. So there'd be one pipe connection to the town's main line.
Okay, so Main Street will be dug up there?
For right where their driveway is going to be, there'll be that lane of traffic would be disturbed for a day's time to lay that piece of pipe in Main Street.
I'm sorry, for how many days'
A
time?
day.
Oh, okay. And is that it, that the neighborhood would observe in terms of this project being
That's
built?
it for the sewer, and then there's a drainage connection and a water connection, and I assume a gas connection. I'm not certain.
Tina?
All the utilities for the development.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to speak to Mr. Kadim's questions. When Mr. Llewellyn and I sat on the committee to select the group that we're going to be voting on for the I&I, one of the things that was mentioned was the groundwater during rain events, and that also they would be studying and giving a recommendation to the town based on how much capacity we could have. So yes, we can support what we have now, or do we need to expand our system, or do we need to stop building because it's just too much? And if we do, we need to expand our system to do that, or yeah, you have lots of room and here's where you have it, or no, you don't, look at the groundwater swells and how do we negotiate that? So that was all part of the group that we picked, and the reason we picked them is because they were going to give those kind of recommendations that you're going to get. So I think it'll all be explained soon.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? If not, we're ready for a vote on the motion to approve the sewer service for the Christchurch property. All those in favor?
No.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, would you call the roll?
Roll call. I'll start with Tina.
Aye.
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 I'm recusing myself.
Pardon?
I need to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Motion passed.
Madam Chairman, how did the chairman vote?
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
It was superfluous. But anyway,
Thank you, Attorney Knott.
all right, our next order of business is reports from Mr. Stallings, Mr. Casey, and Mr. McCarthy was requested to be here, but he did not show up.
He's here.
So we'll never know what happened.
He's here.
Where? Oh, you could sit over here. I couldn't even see you over there.
You want me to start it, I guess? Okay, I'll start. I have 3 items. One item is the operations report for the month of February. Just shows we were within compliance. There were no issues for that month. Another item was our nitrogen credits. We have a draft report from the state, and it's showing that we're going to be receiving just shy of $194,000 in nitrogen exchange credits. The third item is regarding the pump stations. Back in December, the previous WPCA approved $400,000. It was to address the safety issues that we had at one particular pump station that was identified during the pump station evaluation when we evaluated all 6. I just want to inform the board that, I'd like to receive a proposal from Ty and Bond. We currently have them under contract now, and get this proposal and get this work started. These safety issues at this particular pump station involves ventilation and lighting, and it's critical that the operating staff have both when they enter this station. And this was identified to be done immediately, and this was put off due to the potential sale of the plant. So now that we have the $400,000 approved, we're just informing you that we're going to move ahead and have this work done.
You're asking for a motion on that?
No, it's been approved. I'm just basically information. That,
So you're just giving us the information. Yeah. Which pump station is it, by the way?
Pex Mill Pump Station.
Oh. Okay. So you're going to just proceed with the...
I'm sorry.
Pardon? Pump
Station.
Is the
Pex Mill.
Pex Mill Pump Station?
Peck.
P-E-C-K. Pex Mill.
If you go up the River Road and you look to your
By
left...
the pond, Pex Mill Pond.
Thank you.
That's a pond there, and there's a station.
Appreciate it.
Madam Chairman? Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Question to Mr. Stalling?
Sure.
Through you. This $400,000 to approve or address safety issues. Does this is safety issue related, does this station have a generator?
Yes, it does. This is just a component that was taken out of the entire pump evaluation study that was done and isolated because it was such a severe safety issue. The pump station, once we selected an engineering group to actually do the entire 6 pump stations, there'll be a whole host of work being done at this station as well as the other 5. But this particular station does have a generator that's been put in about 4 or 5 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Stallings. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Yes.
Are we asking questions about the report here?
Yes.
Can I just ask something, and this may just be curiosity. So when I look at this, the LIS total nitrogen credit exchange, I see that the total for the selling credits is $5.5 million, and then the total for the buying credits is $4.9 million, and then you point out that there's a difference between the selling and the buying of a little over $500,000. Just because I'm new here to this, how does this actually work?
The state makes up the difference. This is the last year of the program that the state will fund the difference. So next year, the exchange program will strictly be between the buyers and the sellers only. So if we were to take this and extrapolate it to next year, they're estimating our value would be approximately $100,000. But in reality, it'll probably be less because New Haven, by next year, should have their nitrogen system online, so there won't be as many credits being purchased. So I would expect probably, if we were to achieve the same numbers, we'd probably be selling about maybe $70,000 or $80,000 on the market next year at this time.
Okay, so next year, rather than getting $194,000 for our clean, efficient plant, we'll be getting less?
Yeah, it'll be less because the credit values. The exchange is just strictly going to be between buyers and sellers.
Right.
And there are treatment plants in the bold. I think they have nitrogen programs now. They're probably under construction to remove nitrogen. So eventually we're going to have more people on the selling side than on the buying side than on the selling side. So the credits will be worth less on the open market.
Right. And so you're estimating that next year, rather than getting $194,000, we'll only be getting like $100,000?
If we had the same credit exchange as we have right now, yes, because the state wouldn't if we were just buyers and sellers. But again, we have to look at New Haven will probably upgrade their plant and have their system, so there won't be as many credits being purchased.
And then is this reduced amount of revenue, is that in next year's budget, in the
It-
FY17
well,
budget?
it
Or are
re-
we assuming the same thing?
It was really a proposal to get the plants online, get the construction work going. They looked at the nitrogen problem in Long Island Sound as a total problem,
Right.
but it was more severe as you get more towards the western end of Long Island Sound. It really wasn't meant to raise revenues, but it was just it was an incentive exchange program, and eventually it'll still be in place, but there won't be the monetary value to it as
Right.
today.
I just want to make sure that we're in next year's budget, that we're putting in the right number for revenues.
I
That
don't,
we aren't
think, I don't
assuming
think we can guess we can approximate it.
Right, but I hope we aren't approximating
Well,
the same as last year.
Actually, we won't receive this check until August. So this revenue will be good for the 2016-17 budget.
Oh, okay.
So next year I'll get a draft and we'll know what it will be and we can anticipate the revenues again.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Manis?
I have a question for the chair, please, regarding these also selling and buying credits. When Senator Christopher Murphy was here visiting Long Island Sound, and he visited the beach, and they talked about the different pollutants that were coming from the river upstream, and different facilities in the valley, specifically Seymour, Naugatuck, Ansonia, were mentioned. Now, I see them on the green side here, which is confusing to me, and I'm hoping you can clarify, because I was under the understanding that when it reached the mouth to go out into Long Island Sound, that we were seeing the pollution because of things that were happening upstream. So these things seem to be in the green. So why are they in the green, I guess, or did I misunderstand what was going on there?
The big contributors to Long Island Sound, the nitrogen, would be the treatment plants really along the coast. You get inland and the river plants like Ansonia, Derby, and further up, the impact isn't as great, the nitrogen discharge. So there's actually different zones. As you get towards the west side of Connecticut, the value is worth more. As you get inland, the value is worth less. There might be some plants upstream on a river that may decide it's not even worth for them at this point to remove nitrogen because the impact is so little, and they'll just choose to purchase the credits.
So just to follow up, this isn't an indicator of how much pollution is happening. It's just an indicator of how much the value of the
Well, no, it does indicate the pollution value as well. Those that are selling credits have exceeded, or actually had surpassed, the units. We're limited to 356 pounds on a annual rolling average. I think our total was, maybe 100 and something pounds. So we've contributed less in nitrogen. But like I say, they're looking at all the plants in total on Long Island Sound. So some may exceed it, some may actually get better nitrogen removal, but they're looking at the total impact from all the plants collectively. Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes. Did you have a question for
Yes,
Mr. Stallings?
through you to the town attorney. Will you be negotiating this contract?
Well, I haven't been made purview to that. I assume that Attorney Hodgson will have some role in this.
Okay. I have one concern. I support what we're trying to do here, but I do have one concern. Has the 50% of the $218,000 already been committed by the state of Connecticut yet?
I think you're jumping to item 4. You want to talk about that now, or?
No, yeah, I think that's important to know.
I didn't think we got... Are you looking at the next motion?
Well, isn't that what Mr. Stallings was talking about?
No, he's been talking about the nitrogen credit monies.
I'm sorry.
We'll get to that next.
Got it. I apologize.
Okay.
I make mistakes.
Well, you confused all of us, so that's okay. Okay, Mr. Casey, did you have a report?
Most of my report will be on the items, but I can report that the polyaluminum chloride project is underway. The contractor is submitting shop drawings, and as soon as they're all approved and the materials are ordered, they'll start the job. We are also going to be starting the inspection of a certain amount of sewers with the money that was authorized for the closed-circuit television. I said in my memo that the work is commenced. It has not commenced yet, but it will be shortly. And then, as requested, I sent a letter. I sent a list of all the properties that we're going to be sending letters to regarding billing, regarding their sewer connection status and billing. As I said last month, I would send that to all the members, so that went out in my memo. Then the other items I can cover under the...
And that would be the list of the name of the addresses. Those are the people who you feel are not...
connected
you
and
think
not being
they're
billed.
connected, but they're not paying.
Yes.
Okay. Approximately 100?
There's about 100 of those, and then there were a couple question marks, so we're sending different letters to those people. And that's
Thank
in
you.
what I sent out.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Casey? Okay. Yes?
Often reports, monthly reports, contain things like budgets and the progression on the budget, and I don't know if that's in your purview or where the council would get that sort of information, but how much has been spent and whether you're on track, and personnel issues with WPCA, and I guess I just didn't see that in the reports, so...
I think you have to ask the finance director for that information. You can get it all.
Well, okay, perhaps in the future, but I think that somehow that needs to be part of this meeting, because part of our job as oversight should be also monitoring what was spent and where they are in terms of the annual budget. So
Yeah, all that information is tracked by the finance department, so I think they're doing something for the general fund anyway, right? Maybe we can ask the finance director if that monthly report can be sent out.
For just WPCA.
Actually,
I guess it would be good for me. I think it would be good for it to be part of this meeting, just like I think in the Public Works meeting, it should be part of that meeting, and all of these committees and commissions. Part of oversight is looking at how much has been spent and whether the entity is on track with their spending for the year. So perhaps somehow that could be put in the pony.
Beth,
Yeah, we can ask the finance.
I would say except for the more generalized funds, like contingency, which you might want to get specifics on, everything else is now online. The WPCA budget spent to date at the end of each month is put online.
Good, and I think then it would be very easy to include as part of this meeting, to make sure that we're all taking a look at that.
Well, the only thing about today's date, we aren't going to get the end of the month till the end of the month. So you'll be looking at February's figures.
That's fine, it's just
Yeah.
a couple weeks off.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in reference to Mr. Ponte's request, as a person who works with government budgets, and what we saw with the budget hearing, the budget workshops that we did, and what Mr. McCarthy mentioned was the fact that many, we call them OF-95s or purchase orders, I don't know what we call them here, are open throughout most of the year. And the spending, what I have seen in the munis month to month, has been very erratic and irregular. So while it might look like a department is underspent, all of a sudden 2 months later something goes through and it's overspent. So I wonder if it might be quarterly, might be more reasonable, or what you would recommend as the professionals who do this. What do you think is a reasonable thing? Is month to month redundant, or would it be better quarterly? How do you see it being best served?
Who are you addressing the question to?
The
Any?
people in charge who spend the money and know how the money is spent, because certain times of the year things happen.
You're right. Okay.
Rainy season is
To try and answer your question, there are different types of requisitions that are put in place to do the town's business in any department. We have several what are called blanket requisition, blanket orders with different companies for different things: fuel, tires, motor parts, automotive parts. And what you do is at the beginning of the budget year, you estimate based on what you had used the previous year from a particular company, and the purchasing department will put in a blanket order for, let's say, as an example, $50,000. That money is encumbered just to that company, and as you use it, it goes down. So at the end of the year, you're again using the example of $50,000 for automotive parts. And it's a piece at a time or a couple pieces at a time. It's not you're buying a whole load of stuff to have it on inventory. It's use it as you need it. So those blanket orders are in the Munis system, and you can go online on the Munis system and know how much you have left or how much you've spent and pay that vendor.
Just to follow up, though, what I understand from the financial director is that you are able to move things around as the director of this budget, because you do the budget for the WPCA. You're allowed to move monies to whatever line you see fit. Once it's encumbered, can you remove it from that requisition? So once it's been encumbered to that specific organization, like you said, so if I see encumbrance there, are you then allowed as the director to then go and say, oh, well, we didn't spend that much this year over here, I can move it? Are those one of those line items that you can move?
You can cancel. You have the ability to cancel the blanket order to ABC Company, and whatever the balance is goes back into that line item from which it came,
right?
And it can be used for something else if it's before the end of the year.
What I'm saying is, I guess, when governments do budgets, right, you said it yourself, you plan from the year before. So that's the way it's always been done. And as we move forward, just to understand that if we plan the way it's always been done, there may be monies left over, and how does that money transfer back? Where does it go? And can you reassign it once it's been encumbered?
During the budget year, before June 30th, it can be used for something else. If there's a balance and you've determined that you're not going to need it for the ABC Company, it goes back into the line item. It's canceled. It goes back into the line item, the balance that's left. And it could be used for something else that pertains to that line item.
And who makes that decision? You do, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any check and balance on it? Do you have to go to the mayor, to the council? You just do it, right? There's no...
I can cancel it. And
I'm just trying to understand.
There's a process in the Munis system to cancel it. At that point, I can't spend it again without putting in a requisition for something new against it.
Okay.
And when that requisition goes in, there's 3 or 4 people in the system that have to approve it. It starts with me, or actually it starts in the Public Works Department. It starts with the division superintendent, then it comes to me as the department head, and then it goes to the finance department.
Okay.
And there's 2 or 3 people in the finance department that approve it.
Right.
And then it can be spent.
Got it.
So it's not just a drop and grab.
Yeah, so you just can't move it to supplies or something.
Correct.
If you wanted to. Okay, thank
And
you.
at the end of the year, if there's a balance left, that all goes into the general fund, and there's interdepartment transfers, which the council
Just a minor correction. WPCA money was not going to go into the general
fund. Oh, that's correct. The enterprise funds stay in the enterprise. I was sort of speaking about the general operating budget for different divisions.
Beth?
Ms. Manis's point is well taken, that the budget does that spending will fluctuate and sometimes be bunched up. But that's why I think having that information in front of us every meeting, when we have the professionals here to explain things to us, I think will allow us to provide effective oversight.
Okay.
And also to discuss personnel issues to make sure that you have enough and that those.
Thank you. Did you have a report, Mo, for us?
I don't have a formal report. I leave that up to the division superintendent.
All right.
But I'm certainly happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. McCarthy?
Yes, through the chair. When it comes to the spending part of it, it's like from what I'm hearing, it's like a blank check and you write as you need to go. Correct?
I'm sorry.
As far as the spending is concerned, from what I've been hearing, it's like a blank check and you write as you need to go and whatever's left comes back. That's what you say?
It is, but we have limits. We have financial limits. I can't buy anything over $7,500 without bidding. The blanket orders that we have are for small purchase items or many purchases at different times during the business year. $50, $100, $200 in that range typically.
So as board members, do we able to get the report of all the spending, a breakdown of what was spent? That's normal,
That's
right?
correct.
That's normal. Okay, I just want a clarification. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Tina?
So the question is, I think Ms. Bonji would like to see, this stuff is available online through the Munis, right? It's all there. The encumbrances are there. Would we have the ability to just, as a friendly report, to bring that forward during each meeting? Is there the time to kind of go through it, or do we need to do a resolution? And I guess the question goes to you, is this just something I've never seen you here, right? Because we've only had one or two meetings so far. So would that be something that you'd be agreeable to, or do you think we need to pass a resolution? What would you recommend?
I would be agreeable to it, but it's not within my bailiwick, if you will. Those records would be provided by the finance department in report form to you.
Okay.
They're easy enough to do for the person that normally doesn't.
Right.
We wouldn't normally do that at the department level.
So if we brought it forward, and let's say Pete and John were here, would they be able to speak to the individual purchases and the things that were, the spending that was done? If we brought questions forward about that, would that be something that they'd be able to answer without you here and without the finance director here?
Yes, they would, because typically if Peter buys something for water pollution, he puts in the requisition or he puts in the blanket order. I'm next in the approval process. So I approve it in the system, in the Munis system, and then it goes to the finance department. And between purchasing and finance, they create the reports on what's spent with each vendor every month or every year or
So they're
whatever
know
case
the
is.
information. All right, thank you.
Yes.
I guess I just want to reiterate that I really do think that a part of oversight is taking a look at a budget monthly and having a report from the entity, in this case, we're looking at WPCA now, that really should be part of your regular report. I don't really, I'm not going to concern myself about how that is generated, but I do think that when you give us a report on nitrogen credits, which is wonderful, and everything, this report, that's great. We could have another page simply on year-to-date spending, what was spent that month, and it would be informative. And I think over time, that this body would become more adept at looking at your budget and would become more knowledgeable. Okay.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. McCarthy. I understand that the WPCA has one generator that is, what do they call it, portable. And it's been on loan to Shelton, and I wondered when we're going to get it back, because they shouldn't have it. It's WPCA property, and they're using it. And anything that's mechanical is finite use, so anything can wear out. They're wearing it out if they're using it.
that's expected back at the next week or two. They needed to buy a new generator, and we're covering their order time for them when they're without.
They're going to buy us a new generator?
Now, let me finish. We can have that generator back within 1 hour if we need it. Typically, we help other towns, and other towns help us in the form of mutual aid. I received a phone call from Shelton asking us if we had a generator, and I said yes, and I let it out to them with the understanding that if we needed it right away, obviously, and they said absolutely, and we set it up that we can have it within an hour.
I guess my point is it's a WPCA property.
That's correct.
And as such, if another city is using it, they're wearing it out, so to speak.
It's not in.
Nothing lasts forever.
No, and it's not in use 24/7. It's not operating. It's standing by in case they lose power. So it's parked there.
I understand why they need it, but my point is, well, without going into their taxes and so forth, I think they can afford to buy one. But that being said, if we have an emergency, why should we have to wait a whole hour or more to get it back? Because we have 3 pump stations that do not have alternate auxiliary generators.
It's an administrative decision. If you choose not to let it out, that's fine. It has always been the practice in the time that I've been here, in the 9 years that I've been here, that if we could help another town, we always did it because they would help us. And it's no different than mutual aid with fire forces or police departments. Every day, towns interchange their fire forces or their police forces if they have an emergency. So it's a form of
I understand what you're saying, but I don't see that police and fire equate to a generator. I honestly don't. Do you have a generator that is not WPCA property?
We do not. We have one mobile generator in town that we use. It belongs to WPCA, but WPCA lends it to the Public Works Department for other activities other than WPCA activities at different times during the year.
Madam Chairman?
And I'm not trying to be obstinate about it. It's just been the policy since I've been here to if you can help another town or another entity, then we do that. And that's what happened in this case. If I'm directed by the administration not to do that, certainly I wouldn't do it.
Well, I can understand fire and police, people back and forth, but the generator I don't understand at all. And
in this particular case, Madam Chairman, the generator is at the Huntington Fire Station in Shelton, which is, they have a problem with the overhead doors there. They're huge, I guess, and they can't be put up manually. If they lose power, they can't open the doors to the fire station. In this case, the generator they have at the fire station, the permanent generator, failed. They had to order a new one, and they had an 8-week delivery time on it. And they asked if they could borrow, if we had one. And I said, yes, we do.
okay, do you understand if there's an 8-week, they've had it for a couple of months now, do we expect to get it back soon? I worry that we may have a situation.
I spoke to them last week, ma'am, and they said they expected the generator in within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have a question for Mr. McCarthy?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this. When was the decision made to loan the generator to the city of Shelton?
I don't have an exact date with me, but it was around the end of January, sir.
So it was okay. I think a lot of concern and questions you may have been avoided if your January report, you had mentioned that to us, just so that we know, instead of feeling like we've discovered something that we didn't know about.
I have no problem doing that. It just never had been the process before.
Okay. It's a new council.
Madam Chair.
Men.
Madam Chair.
Wally?
Yes, I just want to say this. I missed the last meeting because I had a situation with my son last month. And Mr. Dumas also had to leave the same thing. He had, I think, a situation with his daughter, right? So you missed it too last month. Just refresh my memory, yeah?
I did, but I watched the tape.
Oh, you watched it, okay. So I'm not as sharp as Mr. Dumas in that area. But what I'm saying is this. I hope that you give us some leniency that we are new and that some of the things we're saying is because we're concerned. Most of us actually campaigned so they didn't sell the WPCA. So we're passionate about the WPCA. You understand what I'm saying? So to have reports without numbers in it, even though you can get it online, if you're going to give a report, put the numbers in it. You gave the report. Don't tell me to go to the finance people. I'm talking to you. You came down here, you talking. So put your paperwork in there so we can view it. Also situations like Mr. Chase said, he didn't know that they lent this out back then. That's part of a report. Give your report. Hopefully it will be accurate so that we can understand and make better decisions, because you can't make a decision on a half a report because you don't know what you got. So I really appreciate you guys coming down. I appreciate everything that's going on here, but I really think that you should adjust, just like we have to adjust to being a new council. You should adjust to the fact that you're addressing a new council. You can't do old business the old way. You got to address what's going on today. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Maris?
Hi. So I think what you mentioned with mutual aid with Mayor Loretti is really kind, because they're our neighbor, and I'd want them to help us out if we needed it. And what Mr. Kadim is mentioning about process, I'm wondering if there's any kind of, what Mr. Chase said, is there any kind of mutual aid, I don't want to say a tally sheet, because I don't want to keep numbers on people, but when mutual aid goes out to Shelton or Trumbull or Bridgeport, and when mutual aid from those places come into Stratford, so that we could look at things even beyond generators, like callback and all those kind of things that are happening with regards to mutual aid, because that keeps coming up. But I wonder, is that kept track of in any way by Public Works with regards to generators or even anything else?
In my department, we keep a record of everything we do in a work order system. So yes, it is available to answer your question.
So we would be able to get that if we wanted to look at it.
I'm sorry?
It's available to us if we.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it called?
We have a work order system. Anything we do, there's a work order made on it.
Okay.
If someone calls in a complaint that a street needs to be swept, the clerks in the office will make a work order and forward it to the correct department or division, and the street will be swept.
And mutual
That
aid.
report comes back from the division, and it's closed.
And so mutual aid is
Same thing.
denoted on there.
It's still an
so-
activity, and we keep track of it.
Yeah, because I know if there's a fire, so we have a fire, or we have a generator that but the actual act of mutual aid, is that on the work order, so that
Yes,
we would
ma'am.
know, so it's there.
Yes, ma'am.
If we needed to know that. All right, so I think that's what
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chase might have been asking too.
Yeah.
For that kind
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. McCarthy? Were you going to give a report on the meeting that we had?
Oh, you want to do that now, Madam Chairman?
Yes, we might as well include it with the reports.
For the benefit of the members of the authority, on Tuesday, the chairman and I met with the tax director, the town assessor, the Mr. Casey, the planning and zoning administrator. I believe those were the key heads that were there, and some of their assistants. The meeting was requested by the assessor concerning the roughly 100 households that are not connected to the sewer system. After a lengthy discussion, It was determined that the town had the authority. These folks are hooked up. We have no idea how long they haven't been hooked up, but it was agreed by the group that the town can assess them the sewer fee like every other household, providing that, in fact, they are hooked up and have the meter for billing purposes. I'm going to take these one at a time. So that's, I don't know if there's any questions concerning that, but these are people who are, as not to belabor this, these are people who are hooked up. They will not be charged for previous years, but only for the current year forward.
The list is in your minutes.
Madam Chair, yes, I have the list. I have
On the agenda, yes.
I have it. But the question, I'm just curious. You said they have been hooked up all of this time but not being charged. That's what
Right.
this is.
The question
Okay.
that needs to be raised, actually, and I don't think we could have raised it at this meeting, was when these developments were built, these new houses were built, why weren't they picked up at that time? I don't know if we'll ever have the answer to that, or the reason why they weren't put in the system. But the bottom line is that they would be charged from here on in for water usage fees.
Yeah, because it's the same, through the chair once again, please. It is during the same mindset that I had with the 44 units. It's like, how do you calibrate? If you have one big pipe going in, how do you know who's using what? You understand what I'm saying? That's why we have this situation where you have all these people hooked up, but they haven't paid anything. So I'm just...
As a point of information for Mr. Kadim, what many water authorities do is it's water in, water out, and they get the water usage data from the water supply company, in our case Aquarian.
Oh, no,
and that is how they assess the fees.
I'm aware of that because in my house, I live in a duplex. So I share the water line. So I don't have my own water line. Both of us use the same water line and the same sewer line. So they calibrate it half and half type thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's why I said even if they were hooked up all this time, they still should have been charged something anyway. Like you said, you can't go back. So I understand that. Going forward, you like to charge them accordingly. Mm-hmm. I understand that as well. But what I'm saying is when you have a situation where you have all these units sometime, and like the gentleman, Mr. Dumas said, water in or water out. I understand that because I have the same thing. I own my house for all the years I've been here. So I understand what the billing system is like. So therefore, going forward, that's something that we will be able to put back on the books in terms of them paying for their sewer line. And hopefully there's something set in place where we don't have this problem anymore is really what I'm getting at. Okay.
Right. Through you, Madam Chairman, to answer Mr. Kadim, you're correct. And I should note also that this will bring an additional roughly $45,000 to $50,000 more a year to the authority.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Manis.
Now, Madam Chairman, should I continue my report, or do you want to stay on this point?
I have an issue, well, not an issue, but possibly an issue. With regards to these 100 not connected, I don't know if this relates to it. A gentleman in my neighborhood received one of those in-law pieces.
That's my next report.
That's okay. So it's the next one. I'll wait till you
hold your
report.
question.
Okay.
You got it.
Is it about the 100? Okay.
Yes. Thank you for the report, and I'm glad to hear that this was met about. But I guess I'm very concerned about issues of equity. And so now what I'm hearing is that there were 100 households that probably have not been hooked up this year, probably...
No, they are hooked up.
No, but they were not hooked up this year. The town would know if they were hooked up this year, right? If it was this past year, right? Yes. I would hope.
Mr. Casey, could you answer that?
I think you're saying they didn't just hook up this year.
Right.
Right.
They didn't just hook up.
Right.
No.
They have been hooked up.
And the problem with charging them anything for more than going forward is what?
3 years.
I think
we can go back 3 years.
Okay, so we can look back 3 years. So why aren't we charging them for 3 years then?
I think that's a decision that maybe the authority wants to make, but as right now, we're just doing the 1 year, and then if you want to go back and charge in arrears, I think the town attorney's office was looking at just making sure that we could go back 3 years on a use fee charge.
Okay.
As a point of information, there are notice requirements under the general statutes, and I would suspect that that may be one of the concerns.
Madam Chairman,
I'm sorry. I have a real problem with going back and charging these people, and I'm going to put it on the record. We have lost value in our homes for all these years. I have paid my sewer fee for as long as I can. To go back and tell people that bought homes, I'm looking where some of these homes are, that is an exorbitant amount of money, even for me to come up with. And I have a pretty decent job and work and, have all this stuff. I can see some of these homes in areas where I know people live there and they are underwater currently in their home. And some of these are even larger homes that are even more underwater. Asking them to go back 3 years is just unreasonable unless we have some kind of plan, like, so it's going to be over 10 years that they get to pay it back, or over 5 years. You can't just ask them for this money up front. I just won't support that.
well, Madam Chairman, there's no motion to do that. With the tax assessor, through a group agreement, which we're allowed to do in this case, go back and charge them put them on the roll this year. The issue of whether going back 3 years, that's something as Mr. Casey said, the town attorney was investigating. The point is, I think Ms. Manis is right. I understand what the council chair is saying in terms of equity, but I wouldn't want to do that at this time. Not considering the economic situation of most people right now. Thank you.
We kind of indicated to the tax assessor that 1 year was sufficient. If we get the 100 people signed up from now on, we'll collect. You had the in-law part.
Okay. Okay. We were also asked about the issue of assessing people the water usage fee, sewer fee, for in-law apartments. That discussion took up most of the time, and no decision was made other than to basically table it. We're not going to proceed with that, or the assessor wasn't. There are a number of issues with that. Should the assessor be the one to determine whether or not someone has an in-law apartment? Isn't that the job of the zoning office, not the tax assessor's office? So there were a number of issues concerning it. More importantly, an issue that the chairman raised, and I concurred with her, was if you have an in-law apartment, this could be a house that has just 2 bathrooms, one for the mother-in-law downstairs and one for the rest of the family upstairs. Most homes have 2 bathrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. In terms of equity, I'm just not comfortable charging those folks an additional sewer fee for their in-law apartment. Now, the question that came up, which I don't think there's an answer at right now, we're looking into it, is if the in-law apartment has a separate entrance, in other words, is blocked off from the rest of the house, well, at that point, then I think we can make a decision, well, maybe that's a rental, therefore in violation, I think, of zoning regulations. And if approved by the zoning board, maybe that house should be assessed a second sewer fee. I think that covered all of it,
Yes.
Madam Chairman.
Right. Ms. Manis?
So with regards to that, there are a number of people in my district who fall into those categories and receive those notices. One of the things that a gentleman who lives, I think it's Blueberry or Val, said that he was told when the addition was built, the in-law apartment was built, and I've heard this over and over again, The town told them, and the building zoning said you could never rent this out. It's not a rental, and it must go to a family member. That's part of the agreement. Now, what has happened over on Overland with people there in that home is that their code was changed to O or something, and it was the code on their sewer bill was changed when this whole thing went through in the fall. And then when they went to town hall, they went to have it changed back and were told, no, you're fine, but we're going to leave it that way. And the tax assessor was asked why this was not being changed. He said, because I don't want to. And the council, and then what is happening is anxiety that the council, and this was told by the administration, that the council at any moment could decide to charge these people double. So they're all living in fear that one day they're going to receive that second bill again. And so I don't like people living like that. That's not really kind. And so I'm wondering, is there something we can do to just figure this out and make sure that those people that were told they couldn't rent that apartment out are just one family, period, the end?
Okay, I hear what you're saying. One of the things I observed while I was at this meeting was we have very poor records as far as in-law apartments are concerned, either legal or illegal. And I don't think that most people that have in-law apartments realize that every 3 years they're supposed to refile with the zoning, that the people who identify what an in-law apartment is should be zoning or a zoning officer. I have to go and talk to the people at zoning to find out if they even have an officer these days who goes around and inspects these things. Basically, as Vin said, we left it to just not charge anything different than had been charged the previous year until we, as a WPCA authority, go over the costs and their policies and all of that. And we couldn't really do it tonight, obviously.
Yes.
It's a good 6 pages worth of stuff to look at.
Can I just point out that none of this is on the agenda, and perhaps this would be a very good agenda item for our next meeting? Unless I'm missing something. I don't think that either of these things were on the agenda. And
Vincent's report? That's okay.
It is? I'm sorry. I'm was happy to hear about the meeting. I just didn't want us voting on something that perhaps we need.
There was no intention to vote. It was just an informational, I'm just giving you some information.
But it seems like the next logical step would be to vote on.
But we can't do that until we have to determine which town department is going to be responsible for looking at and determining which are legal in-law apartments, which are illegal in-law apartments. And I think our good town attorney wants to say something, so I would relinquish the floor to him.
Just a point. You also, before you can decide what to do on that issue, is to determine how you define a dwelling for the purposes of this particular imposition of a sewer use fee. Does the fact that a designated area has a stove and a sink, does that make it a dwelling? Is the fact that it has a separate entrance, does that make it a dwelling? From a policy point of view, this commission's going to have to determine that. And one of the problems with of collecting and going back on in-law apartments is, up to this point in time, I don't believe that the WPCA has had any standards in place to determine that. So.
The actual thing, Mr. Flork, the actual determination is spelled out in the zoning regulations, which I don't have in front of me.
But that's only for zoning purposes. That's never been adopted for WPCA purposes and for the imposition of a fee.
As of point of information, the WPCA is a completely autonomous entity under the general statutes. The zoning regulations are relevant to it, and under General Statute 7-255, we would have to set how we charge those fees, and those people haven't had adequate notice of that. So any retroactive payments would violate 7-2255, which is why going back is probably fruitless. And if one wanted to address it when we have the public notice and meeting for setting the fees for the next fiscal year, that's something where it could be addressed. And I would suggest at this point, given the hour and our tendency to run long on meetings, that we probably move on to and address that subject.
That's why
So you're talking...
we've decided to look it over.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Just to respond, Mr. Dumas, you're referring to in-law apartments, though?
Correct.
Okay. At the meeting, Madam Chairman, if you recall, Attorney Alex is looking into those three issues for us, and will get back to us.
Yes, that would be Attorney Alex Florek.
Right.
Yes, it would.
I had a brain cramp. Thank you.
Madam Chair, it seems like the new council has a lot of work in front of it, because apparently the other council, I don't know what they did when they got here, because this is really raggedy. Because I don't even understand. I'm going through all this stuff, and I'm saying, shouldn't this already been dealt with? I'm just thankful that we're here now. No, it's very raggedy.
Yeah.
I don't need the description of it. I'm reading it.
The fees were dealt with. Actually, last year in November, the town council, basically, after they had been attacked by 70 people, I think, for being charged twice, basically said we didn't charge anything. And quite frankly, if you look at the procedures or whatever, the WPCA had a set of procedures, but there were no fees attached to it. The fee business was all set up by the tax assessor's office because they had to do something. However, as I said, we'll look at it later. You're right. We're very busy. And we just decided for this year, we'll just let it be what it was. Can we move along? Yes. Okay. The next motion is to approve the selection of Ty and Bond to conduct our Phase 1 of inflow and infiltration, the I&I study. That's the water situation that...
I move that we approve the selection of Ty Bond to conduct Phase 1 of the inflow and infiltration I&I study. Ty and Bond quoted $218,784 for this work, but the state will reimburse 50%. I make the motion to move, and although I would like some discussion on this.
Madam Chair, I second.
Madam Chairman, question to, I guess, Mr. Stalling. The $218,784, we're going to be reimbursed by the state of Connecticut 50%.
55 is the planning grant.
Oh, 55. It says 50 here. Okay, that's even better. Question I have, though, is have they already agreed to this?
I think John's got correspondence from them on that.
Yeah, they've reviewed the proposal, and they said it is eligible for the grant. We haven't submitted a grant application yet, so it's not approved as a grant, but they're aware of it. We're in the pipeline. This is part one, which is the gauging and monitoring part. There's going to be the next part, which actually taking this data and studying it and putting it into practice. So once we get those two pieces approved, then we'll apply for the grant. We understand there is funding in the program.
Right.
So we're in line for the grant. We just haven't received it yet.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I have a major concern. Grants are being pulled left and right by the state. State's facing almost $1 billion deficit come July. They're in a panic mode up there. We've already lost one grant, not us, but the Shakespeare Stage Group has lost their $125,000 grant because the contract wasn't signed. But they are looking at grants anywhere where they can find a way to cut funding. So therefore, I think when we enter into contract negotiations that the town attorney should consider putting in the contract that the $218,784 is contingent upon reimbursement 55% by the state of Connecticut.
As a point of information, Madam Chair, which Mr. Stallings and Mr. Casey could assist us on, presumably this is through the Clean Water Revolving Fund grant, and that fund is federally funded. It's not through state funding. So to the extent that our esteemed Governor Malloy is got his hands full up in Hartford, that this is funding that is separate from that process. To the extent that alleviates people's concern, it is ultimately federal money.
Over and above that, I just want to mention that last year, $175,000 was already approved for this phase. So if we get the state grant, we're ahead of it.
Have we gotten the $175,000?
That's approved
That was in our budget.
It's approved by you out of the town's
That was
fund.
last year's budget.
So that's our money?
Yes.
That we've approved?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that still doesn't answer the concern. And with all due respect, Mark, I've seen how these funds work at both the state and federal level. And believe me, the money could disappear tomorrow. That's why I think, to be on the safe side, that we should put something in our contract that says that, we'll go forward providing we get the funding. Mr. Casey, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I don't think we can really do that.
Why?
Well, because our goal is to get these monitors in the sewers this spring, so we can capture the wet weather, the spring weather, the high groundwater table, and the rains. Hopefully we get sufficient rains this spring to effectively see the results of the rainfall, how the sewers respond to that, and that's our goal. We won't be applying for this grant for a couple months, so if we wait to do the contract for the grant, then we can't do the monitoring this spring. And that's why we broke it up into the two phases. Instead of waiting to negotiate all of the fee, we just want to get the monitoring in first, so we can get that phase started immediately, and then apply for the grant after the fact. So if the consultant's not going to do work contingent on another entity, they're going to have a contract with the town.
Do they have a contract now?
Not, we're waiting for you to award that contract.
That's what this motion is, to award the contract. Ms. Manis.
So the Connecticut DEP is currently short-staffed. We learned that through the interview process. There are not enough people to do the work up there. Obviously, Connecticut is strained. However, the funds are there. The funds are available, as Mr. Dumas said. It is imperative that we get the monitors in the ground and we approve this phase. Here's why. Because part of this bond and McTean bonds piece was that groundwater is playing a role in the overflow of our sewers, or in the rising level. If they can't monitor during the rainy season, which we're already starting to approach, they won't do that. This group is willing to, already had the monitors on hand. They were willing to put them in, and the minute we approve, they're going to go in the ground. It has to be done, because if we don't, all the money we even put into it is for naught. We have to wait till next year. We will have to wait till next year, and then all these projects that Mr. Kadim was talking about, and we're worried about going over capacity, these things are going to keep getting approved. We could be over capacity and not know it because they weren't able to do their work. Do you know what I mean? So all of the projects that are coming up, for example, James Farm Road, Hamilton Avenue, Christ Church, all of these things are popping up through TOD. We won't know if they're even viable. They're going to go through anyway because we have no data to back up that our sewers are over flooded or what's going on. It just really has to happen. I believe what they said. Those people were pretty bright, and I think Mr. Llewellyn, they were really, really good. They know what they're doing.
I just want to ask if there's a way to structure the contract so the first deliverable would be worth, I don't know, it's like about $100,000, and then the second deliverable, I mean, I don't know about this work, but sometimes you can structure it that so the first deliverable is paid by the town, the second deliverable is paid by the grant?
Well, again, the state grant.
Or if it's all one deliverable and can't be split up that way, then it wouldn't.
Yeah, it's the primary fund workload here is the cost of installing the gauges in the sewers. There's 44 gauges that will be put in the sewer system, and they are charged by the week. So we hope to capture a rain event,
Never mind.
and in 6 or 8 weeks, that most of this will have been done, and so we'll be obligated to pay for it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
John.
But again, we are splitting it into 2 pieces, so this is only half of the piece. So the next piece, which is the study and the modeling and the recommendation phase, we can delay that work until we get a firm grant commitment. We are, in effect, splitting it in 2.
I'd also like to point out that this has been delayed a year because a lot of projects were put off last year under the hopes that we were going to be sold to New Haven. So this was really scheduled for last year. So we're already a year behind. And I think Miss Manis has pointed out the high points of why we should look at this now. Are there any other discussions on the motion?
Okay.
Who? Oh, the lawyer. Who?
The one other thing that might lead you to rest a little more easily is most of these contracts, if not all, have a termination for convenience provision in them, which allows the town to unilaterally terminate a contract at any point in time. Now, you have to pay for the work that's been done up to that point in time by the contractor, but you're not normally obligated to continue the project if the body in charge of that has determined that it's no longer feasible or in the best interest of the town.
Thank you. I move the question, Madam Chairman.
Pardon?
I move the question.
Second? Second. All in favor of moving the question?
Aye.
Okay. All right. We'll vote on the question to approve tie and bond to conduct Phase 1 of the I&I study. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All those? Yes. Okay. Passed unanimously after all that. Okay. We're now looking for a motion to set out a request for qualifications for the evaluation of our WPCA governance, relationship to the general fund, and user rates and fees. And I think those who attended the presentation by Mr. Donahue will recognize what we're after here. Cost of studies has not been done in our WPCA within my memory. And so we're going to send out a request for qualifications for other companies in addition to Mr. Donahue's. So may I hear a motion to that
Madam
effect?
Chair, so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Take a vote. Oh, you had your hand.
No, I just want to point out that I think a study like this is sorely needed, especially in this situation, and that it will help us tremendously.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes.
I'm hoping that we can keep track of the study and use it possibly as a pilot for other departments. I know we've talked about auditing, but it's kind of just been a word we use. I think that this more, the evaluation of the governance and the relationship and the general and the fees, we might be able to use this particular model when examining all departments at different times.
You. All right, if there are no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? I vote yes. Motion passed. Okay. I just want to comment on number 6, which is the pump station study. We have a subcommittee now of WPCA members to work with Mr. Stallings and Mr. Casey, and those are Vin Chase, Joe Gresco, and myself, and we'd like to get another volunteer if possible, but yes.
I like the volunteer.
You want it? Sure. Okay, Wally. Okay. I'm sure that Mr. Stallings or Mr. Casey will let us know when they want us to meet to study. That's a long-term project. The other question I have is the sewer extension hookup for 100 River Valley Road.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, before we go on with that.
Are you
I
volunteering?
was speaking, no, I'm volunteering somebody else, John Goodsell, who is an engineer who lives in town, who expressed to me interest in serving on anything that would use his engineering sort of skills. He's a mechanical engineer, but he's very familiar. He'd be very interested in this sort of process. So I think he could be a very good addition to this sort of subcommittee.
What was his name?
John Goodsell.
What was the last name?
Goodsell, Goodsell. He lives on Housatonic Avenue.
Hey.
How old is he?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a
No,
point
he's
of
older than me.
A question for the town attorney regarding makeups of subcommittees. I think this might have come up at the last meeting as well. Because the WPCA does not have in the charter that it will be made up of any members of the public, adding members of the public to the subcommittee, does that present a problem? Because I can see more people wanting to come forward now if we had. You know what I mean? It's not that I don't want this person, I'm just saying. How do we...
Well, obviously, it's always better to have a formalized system for appointing people. But as I understood this from the description, this was basically a kind of a volunteer thing that people were sought as volunteers. It wasn't really a committee appointment per se, but volunteers. Generally, subcommittees are made up of the members of the main committee. But I don't necessarily think, I'd have to check Robert's rules, but I don't necessarily think that's a hard, fast rule. I don't know that there's any rule that says that a subcommittee cannot consist of someone other than a member of the main committee.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
On that point, the Stratford High School Subcommittee, I believe, has citizen
Could very well.
members.
So,
Yeah, so the precedent's already been set. I'm sorry, Tina.
But my question is that we're appointing someone to this without any kind of formal, yes, we're going to do this. I think the Stratford High Subcommittee, did you do that?
Well,
did you solicit the public?
Well, no, we sort of went through somewhat of a vetting process, and there were recommendations made, and, people made comments or, said, this guy's involved in roofing, this person does construction. We originally got Eric Lazaro sort of to come on as a Stratford police officer and sort of give us some advice on the security aspect to it. I will say that at the subcommittee level, it does get a little more kind of ad hoc in nature, and it's very rare that at the subcommittee level you'll see a volunteer be turned away because it is a little bit of a less formal environment, as Attorney Flurick has explained.
What I'd love to see, and this is just me, is I'd like to see this Mr. Goodsell brought in, but I'd also like to see what you're describing. So it's not just, okay, it's you, and Mr. Goodsell. I think that if we just continue vetting, and if people come forward and they have the skills, we welcome them, because there's a lot of interest in this plant and all the things around it. So
Yeah, I wouldn't really want the when I was the one that suggested the subcommittee, I really wouldn't want it to be too large, because then it'll get unwieldy, and we really are mostly observers of the technical people and the engineers that work on this.
it's more
So.
who decides who's not on the subcommittee. You see what I'm saying? It's not so much who's on the subcommittee, it's how do you decide that I'm not on it if I want to be. So, you're building a building, I get it, but with this, there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge around it. So how is that decision being made? It's just
yeah, a point well taken. I mean, there should be some type of formalized process that at least sets out standards for selection.
Attorney Flurick, the process was I begged people.
I'm sure.
I asked Beth twice already, are you volunteering? And she said no.
A little bit. I'd like to withdraw my suggestion of John Goodsell until we do have a process. I do agree with Ms. Manis's emphasis on process.
Okay.
So I would like to withdraw that, and we'll keep it with council members until, with this committee's members, until we do have a more formalized process or see a resume.
I don't want to take Mr. Goodsell out of the process.
No, I understand.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
Yes.
I just don't want it to be overcrowded with other people, and I think that he should be kept informed. And if this person is social capital in our community, we need to use him, but we also need to figure out the process for turning good friends away that are going to come forward
Okay.
that might not be qualified.
Thank you. Our final question still, which I iterated before, was the sewer extension hookup for 100 River Valley Road. Do we have any more, let's see. Have we heard anything more from that?
So if you recall, there were 2 written
Yes.
comments at the public hearing out of the 4 houses that might be affected. We tried to reach out to the other 2 houses by stopping by their house and knocking on their door, and we left a business card, and then we got no response, so we sent a letter. And I did get a call from one of the owners who indicated that they were not in a position financially to pay for their share of the sewer should it be extended. I asked for a formal written opinion from her, but I didn't get that. But I did get a verbal conversation I had with her. The other owner did not respond at all. So
Did you want to wait again for a response? if
I don't
possible?
think from the other owner we're going to get a response. I just get that feeling that we've tried many times and haven't heard from them that they're not interested in responding. The other person, they may respond, but I think that's their answer. From what they explained to me, they're not interested in having to pay for any sewer assessment at this time. I did explain there's possible that there could be a deferment if the council were to, or the authority were to decide to defer the assessment costs, and that if she was interested in paying for it in the future, then maybe she would write that into her opinion. But she didn't send anything, so I can't
All right, let me
force
ask
somebody to respond.
Yeah, right. Let me ask you a question. You have 2 people that want this, and if if you go ahead with the 2 people, and I can't remember whether that was the one that had to be pumped uphill or downhill or whatever the heck it was, but if you go ahead with these 2 people, and then down the line, the 3rd person, whom you haven't heard from, says all of a sudden, well, I'd like to be part of that, would that alter things as far as your design of how you're hooking things up?
Well, because there's 4 people, so there's 2 on one side of the street, 2 on the other side of the street, and the one closest to where the sewer extension will be is in favor of it, but the person opposite that is the guy that didn't respond. And then the next people down the street, one was the one that approved it with the conditions, and the person opposite that is the one that doesn't want to have to pay for it. So if you brought up the sewer one length to serve the person who wants it, the person across the street would be able to be assessed, but they haven't told us if they want to be assessed. And then if you extended it all the way, you would pick up 2 of the houses that want to participate, but then the other 2 would be the ones that don't want to be assessed. Okay. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I guess if you were going to bring it up one length, you would probably want to assess the first 2 properties, and if you brought it up all the way, then you'd probably want to assess all 4 properties, with the possibility of a deferment if people don't connect.
Okay, because you're asking us, I noticed in your memorandum, that we should decide on whether to proceed with a project.
Yes, that's the process. So we had a public hearing. 2 out of 4 people expressed an interest in it, and now we have to decide what to do.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Manis.
If I can speak to this a little bit. I think we're currently in the 21st century, and sewer usage is what it is, right? Septic tanks are used, but we're developing and we're growing, and whether or not the people that are currently in that home are going to be there for the next 100 years is left to be unseen. We have to build the infrastructure in the town to support what's there. And I think that if there's sewers that need to be laid, and you guys have decided that they need to be laid, and people don't want to pay for them, There was a piece that you mentioned where it could be deferred out so that at some point when the house is sold, that's part of the sale price, and giving people those options. But I think if the sewers, if we're ripping up the roads to lay down the sewers, and then we're going to close them up again, and then 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, my niece is going to be sitting here ripping up the roads again. And we're just going to be doing the same thing. It's like Groundhog Day. Lay them down, get it over with, move on, and put the money at the end. And if people want to pay it up front, give them multiple choices. It's a choose your own adventure, but Stratford's got to do what Stratford needs to do.
Okay. All right, then I'm looking for a motion to decide to proceed with the 100 River Valley Road with the 2 persons.
Motion to proceed.
Second.
Is there any discussion about the motion to proceed with the 2 people it wanted on River Valley Road? All those, no? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Was that unanimous?
It was unanimous. I said yes.
Madam Chairman, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
There you go.
Aye. Another 8-0 vote.
Anyway.